My name is Mike Gorehouse, and I am here in Holland, Michigan, in the United States. And I am coming to you from afar to talk a little bit about my experience with youth philanthropy and engaging young people in giving back to the community, and how my journey and how my life was impacted by that. The hope would be that from hearing from me that you feel inspired to invest in young people near you and your communities as well. But when I had a chance to meet with folks from the beautiful foundation here in Michigan earlier this summer, there was a lot of interest in how someone of my age was able to get to a leadership position of a foundation. I'm president and CEO of the Community Foundation of the Holland, Zeeland area. And it's an organization that has $55 million in assets, and we give grants to support nonprofits locally. And as you can see, I'm young. I'm really young to be a president of a foundation. And how I got here really started with folks like you who decided to invest in me through a program called a YAC, a Youth Advisory Council. What a YAC is it's a group of young people that are empowered to make decisions about how to use resources in the community. In our case, it's a group of 20 high school students ranging in age from 14 to 18, representing different schools in our community. And when I was in high school, I was invited to join this group. And I had no idea what philanthropy was, what grant making was. I didn't even know what nonprofits were. But I said yes and signed up to be a part of the group. And I'll tell you that one of the very first things that I learned and experienced having been a part of this Youth Advisory Council was that I thought about my community as my school. I wasn't really thinking about my community bigger than that until I was a part of this group with other young people of similar ages who live in the same place, but because they go to a different school, I didn't think of them the same way as people that went to my school. So the first thing I learned was there's a lot of people just like me living in this place that want to make the lives of other people better. The second thing that I learned was that there was something different about this Youth Advisory Council. And the biggest thing that was different was we had adults here at the foundation who really believed that young people had something to offer, something that they could contribute to the process of distributing these funds. So much so they believed this, that they let this group of 20 high school students distribute, when I was here, it was close to $100,000 in grants. Nonprofits would apply to us for programs, mentoring programs, or after-school programs, or substance abuse programs, whatever it may be. And then we, this group of 14 to 18-year-olds, would read these applications and make a recommendation to the adults about how to use these funds. Now let me tell you, that is pretty rare that adults would hand over the power or hand over the decision-making authority to a group of high school students. Some of us couldn't even drive. We were young, and you think, why would they do that? Why would they trust those decisions to young people? Don't they know the needs of the community? Don't those adults know the best way to use those funds? Well, I'll tell you what drove them to do this was they believed two things. One, they thought that young people were the best equipped to make good decisions about using these dollars when it came to youth programs. We were young people ourselves, so we would have a good chance of knowing whether that program would be successful or whether that idea would attract other young people to be involved. But the second thing they believed was that if they were going to train us to be good leaders for the rest of our lives, that they needed to give us real experience. Not just talk about leadership or talk about decision making, but to actually give us real dollars to make real decisions. And that's hard. right? As adults, that's hard for us to hand over that and say, hey, this group of young people, they might make a bad decision. They might make a choice that we wouldn't make, but you have to let them go, because that's how people learn. That's how I, as a member of the Youth Advisory Council, was first truly empowered to be a leader, because this was real money. This was a big deal, and we knew how big of a deal it was, and so we took our jobs very, very seriously. So as a part of this Youth Advisory Council, I began to learn about how to build consensus amongst a group of people, how to talk about the differences. We all didn't agree with each other. We had different perspectives, but it was all of us together coming to a common decision. That was a life lesson that I learned very early on. The other thing that happened for me personally was the adults not only empowered this group of young people, but they empowered me individually, even at a higher level. So the director of the foundation decided to invite me to join the board of trustees, the adult board of trustees here at the foundation. So I had a chance as a high school student to be in board meetings, real board meetings, talking about big high-level decisions. And I can still remember some people kind of wondering early on, was this a good idea? Can we trust him? Is he going to say something to someone out in the community that we don't want them to? And what they learned was I took my job very seriously. And I was there to learn from them, to listen. I didn't do a lot of talking at first because I didn't exactly know what was going on all the time. But as I went to meeting after meeting over the course of a year or two, I became more and more comfortable with what was going on. And I was learning all kinds of things about the way the world works, the way organizations work, how to make good decisions. And so they invested in me. They took a chance on me, involving me in this process. Well, then the next thing happened. One of the board members invited me to participate with him on fundraising calls. So each board member was responsible for going out and asking local individuals and companies to contribute to the foundation, so they had money to give away. And one of the board members invited me to join him in those meetings. And so here I was a young kid, and I went along and was a part of these conversations with these high-level, important, powerful people as they talked about whether they would give to the foundation. Unbelievable experience that I probably would have never had for many, many years down the road, to be exposed to something like that. But again, they trusted me. They trusted that I wouldn't say something really dumb in the meeting or do something that wasn't right. And I'll tell you, those first few meetings I was a part of, again, I didn't say very much. But as time went on, a year or two or three, I got more and more comfortable with being a part of those meetings, to the point that by the end, I was the one doing a lot of the talking, because I felt comfortable talking about the foundation, what we were doing, how we made our decisions, and why that person should consider being a part of our organization. And let me tell you, when you get a young person who's able to talk and say those things and describe those things, I think it meant a lot to those donors, to those individuals, that, wow, this 17-year-old, 18-year-old individual really cares about this, and that certainly means a lot to them. Well, as you continue to think about then my journey and my career, there was another individual who then chose to invest in me as well. His name is Rob Collier, and he's president of the Council of Michigan Foundations. He offered me the opportunity to do an internship with the council when I was in college. And I did the internship, and then they hired me part-time. And they hired me to work with youth advisory councils all around the state of Michigan and around the country, helping other foundations engage young people in decision-making for grant dollars. And really, I'll say what I said earlier again, the reason you would want to do this really is twofold. One, I believe and others believe that young people really have good ideas. They can really make a difference in your community. But even if you don't agree with that, the second reason is if you want young people to learn how to be leaders, if you want them to learn about how the way the world works, you have to empower them with real decision making. You have to give them a chance to do and make decisions in real life, not just pretend. And that's the biggest difference a lot of times, at least with schools here in the United States. There's a lot of talking in school, a lot of thinking and analyzing, but there often isn't a lot of time to actually do things, make mistakes, and do things kind of differently than the way the world works. So Rob gave me a chance, hired me part-time, and then hired me full-time when I graduated from college, and worked my way through a few different jobs. And a few years ago, my hometown foundation, the place that initially invested in me as a part of the Youth Advisory Council, they invited me to join the organization as a staff member, which was with the hope that I would become president of the foundation when their then president retired. Now, let me say this again. This organization then went back to somebody that they invested in as a 14-year-old. This is now 10 years later, and now I'm running the foundation, working with the next generation of young people, and we still have the Youth Advisory Council. We still have 2 members from the Youth Council on our board. We have them on our distribution committee. We have them here in the office doing, one of them's doing an internship with us right now. And the whole reason that this is even happening is because early on, adults took a chance on investing in young people. It's a lot easier for me to empower young people because I experienced it. I was someone who 15 years ago, they trusted me, so it's a lot easier for me to trust the next young people. But for many of you, you may not have grown up in a place where you were given that kind of authority as a young person or given that kind of decision making. Don't let that scare you. It's not always going to be perfect. Not every young person is going to turn out to be the president of a foundation, and they shouldn't. But what I will tell you is if you want them to learn, if you want them to experience what giving back is like, if you want them to become better leaders, the only way that's going to happen is if you really give them good leadership opportunities, ability to make decisions, and let them make some mistakes along the way. I think that you'll find over the next 5 or 10 or 15 years that many of those people will come back and they will attribute their future success to you giving them opportunities when the rest of society tends to look at young people as a burden, not as individuals that can contribute positively. So that'd be my encouragement to you all as you are in your conference and thinking about how this could work for you. Just know there are people around the rest of the world that have done this and it has worked, and just know that we're here cheering for you, hoping that it can work out just as well for you and your youth philanthropy programs as well. Have a great conference.